Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Joe here live on our normal day. That is a Tuesday. You can check us out on the old YouTube. We are live there. So if you missed this week, next week, we will be there. Instead of our question of the day today, Joe thought it would be fun to take a trip down memory lane, a little throwback Tuesday to our top 10 blast from the past, 2000 to 2009, somewhere in that range. Former college NFL players that might have forgotten, but were relevant at one time, or maybe have some sort of memory that lasts into your brain. So we're just kind of going to go back and forth with our top 10 of forgotten former football players.
Just some of the guys that, makes you get a little nostalgic from, whether that's just playing some old school Madden from the, early 2000s, or some of your, mid late 2000s, or maybe, just some of your early memories of teams that really you followed, or teams that you hated because they would do work against teams that you followed, or, college football, like some of my first memories, those I'll be naming some of those players. So it'll be a good time. Hopefully a little throwback, and so that you listeners don't forget about these epic names out there.
Love it. Why don't you go ahead and kick it off, Joe, with your number 10 guy?
Number 10, Adam Archuleta.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
Safety for the best show on turf. Those stud Rams teams.
Like it. Number 10 for me, former Northern Illinois running back and Atlanta Falcons running back, Michael Turner.
Michael the Burner. Yeah, he was always a fantasy son of a bitch, though.
Yes, he was.
Number 9, Garrison Hurst.
Oh, you took one of mine from later on.
Yeah.
All right, I
was tempted to put him a little bit higher up on this list, but he's a great name out there.
Yes. I got one to sub in. Number 9, former Minnesota Golden Gopher Lawrence Maroney.
Oh yeah, that was that Gopher tandem with the law
Marion
firm?
the Barbarian.
Oh, it was Marion the Barbarian Barber.
The Barbarian Barber, yep. If I'm not mistaken.
Yep, you're right. It totally was. Okay, Lawrence Maroney looked like he was about to be, like, I thought he had some years where he looked like he was going to be an absolute monster. He had some really nice years, just never, kind of was able to do it consistently. Marion Barber had a couple awesome years too, especially some of that time with the Cowboys. Number 8, former Badger running back Anthony Davis.
Nice.
Number 28, Anthony Davis. One of the OG Badger offensive players that, pops into my mind.
Nice. My number 8, staying in the Big Ten, former Penn State linebacker Paul Posluszny.
Yeah.
He was a beast. Absolutely loved watching that guy running around. So
he was a monster. He had a couple years with the Bills, I believe.
Yep.
Believe he was in Buffalo.
Yep.
Paul Posluszny, love it. All right, going back over to the NFL, and let's get over to the defensive side of the ball, sticking with another defensive back, Fred Smoot.
Nice.
Former Skin.
Nice. Love
Fred
it.
Smoot, baby.
My number 7, one of the most favorite quarterbacks that I got to see, I think, in the mid to late 2000s, and that is West Virginia's own Pat White.
Shit. Throw Steve Slayton in there too.
Yeah, buddy.
That duo. Oh my God. That was legitimately one of the most fun offenses to watch, ever.
Yep.
They were such a ridiculous option and ridiculously fun to play on NCAA. What are we at? Number 10, 9, 8, 7, 6? Number 6. Ohio State quarterback Craig Krenzel.
Oh, gosh.
Quarterback with that Ohio State team in the early 2000s.
Fun fact, if I'm not mistaken, I believe his mom was once upon a time my dad's secretary back in the day.
That is amazing.
My number 6 was Garrison Hurst, so I will sub that out. I'll throw a Badger into the list here, and that is former defensive end Erasmus James.
Damn it! That's one of mine. Oh, hell yeah.
He was an absolute beast, and then I believe the marijuana got to him when he was in the pros and never
really popped with the Vikes.
No. Nope.
All right. Well, that was one of my college guys. I guess I'll go back over to the NFL for my number 5. RIP Sean Taylor. So much damn fun to watch. Hardest hitter in the league. And I mean, just a lot of good personal memories. One of my best friends from back in Stoughton was like the biggest Sean Taylor fan. And yeah, I mean, obviously devastating when he passed and when he was, but a freaking boss at Miami and also, his time in the pros with Washington. So Sean Taylor, baby.
I'm going to throw mine to the college ranks here. This gentleman did play a little bit of time in the pros, but my number 5 is Darren McFadden, Arkansas running back, absolute monster at Arkansas, and just never really got the career going in the NFL.
Outside of that 1 year with the Cowboys when Zeke went down,
yep,
he had 1 year, but he was on the cover of one of the NCAA games. Him and Felix Jones, that duo. Of course, Jerry Jones ends up with both of them at some point.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go with my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4.
Yep. Number 4.
Number 4. Former Badger, another one. Teammate of Anthony Davis, Lee Evans.
Nice.
Number 3.
Very
Guy
nice.
was ridiculous. And it's too bad, he spent some time with the Bills, but never really popped. But that guy was, he was ridiculous. His senior season, or at least his final season with the Badgers, just touchdown monster. Which, when's the last time you can say that about a Badgers receiver? Probably him.
Yeah, Nick Toon.
Okay.
Nick Toon was okay for a little bit, but yeah, no. Lee Evans was an absolute monster.
Nothing wrong with the Saturday morning Nicktoons.
My number 4, somebody that some of you might not even know played college football. This is starting major league pitcher Jeff Samardzija of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
That was him and BQ out there?
Yeah,
Brady Quinn. Yep.
Yes,
he was. I was actually really surprised when he went to MLB.
Yeah.
All right, number 3. Former Bills receiver Eric Moulds.
Wow. Okay.
Reaching a little bit.
This one is somebody that I just really liked his name. I think I had him on a couple of my fantasy teams that he was just trash. And this is former Atlanta tight end Algie Crumpler.
Hardly know her. Oh, that's amazing. All right, number 2. Fullback Mike Allstott.
Yep, that's a good one.
Guy could not be stopped.
No.
When that arguably the best fullback of all time, at least in our generation. Got to be up there.
For sure. My number 2, staying at the tight end position. This guy was on my fantasy team quite a few years and never really panned out, but it was always fun to say his name after a bad fantasy day, and that is former Baltimore tight end Todd Heap, because he would always be a Todd Heap of shit.
Todd Heap. And my number one overall nostalgic player, guy that I, for some reason, really randomly had a man crush on, Chad Pennington.
Oh, good God.
Yeah.
My number one is a player, wide receiver back in the day of playing video games, college football. I would just loft the ball up to him and he would come down with everything. He was one of the better wide receivers of the early 2000s, did not pan out in the NFL.
I have a feeling.
And it is Michigan wide receiver Braylon Edwards.
I knew it.
Braylon Edwards. Absolute monster in college. And then
unreal.
He was
these are the Browns.
He was with the Browns, yes.
That's all we need to say.
Tim Couch days, and not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob.
Well, that was
honorable mention in here. Thomas Jones of the Bears. I was always afraid of him as a Packer fan, so honorable mention there. Didn't quite make the cut, but he's right there. Maybe number 11.
So one of my honorable mentions too. I didn't know if he'd necessarily qualify because if you're a college football fan, you see him on the stage every Saturday morning on ESPN. But David Pollock. David Pollock was an absolute man-child at Georgia in the linebacker position and was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I wasn't relevant to me, but
that was fun.
Okay, that was good. That was good.
Good time.
That was great.
We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Live on YouTube on Tuesdays. Show pop up after we record, so you can watch them on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Make sure you subscribe, click the bell. That way you know when the live episodes drop. You can ask us any questions. We monitor the chat. So if you have fantasy questions, any topics you want us to talk about, we're more than happy to do so. If you want to follow Gel, he can be found at DasGel. That's at DASJEL.
That was awesome.
I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DASJPEC. And send us in any questions you want there. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot, get you some sticker swag sent out in the mail. It is our Tuesday show, so that means it is Recap Central. We're going to kick it off with the NCAA, and I think a game that I want to kick this off with was one that we discussed a little bit on our preview episode last week and thought that maybe it'd be a close game. Maybe they were looking ahead to that matchup against Alabama this week, but it is Tennessee going down to the Bayou and just absolutely running a train through LSU. Just absolute dominant performance. Hendon Hooker, Small have a huge day. And that was just, the opening kickoff, LSU fumbles it, Tennessee recovers it, and that was the game. That literally was the game. It was all Tennessee.
It was all Tennessee from there. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that, the way just how quickly Kansas City started last week's the previous week against Tampa with that opening kickoff fumble, 7 points right off the bat. But Tennessee looks really effing legit this year. I can't believe I'm actually that's actually coming out of my mouth, but they actually finally look legit. Heupel is clearly making a massive difference within that program. I hope who's that Browns owner and
Haslam?
Massive Tennessee booster.
Haslam.
Yeah. As long as he doesn't get in the way, I think Tennessee has a legit shot. They certainly are there and ready to compete with Georgia for the East, and at that point compete for the SEC title if they're able to take down Georgia. I know they do end up matching up with Georgia a little bit later in the season, so that'll be an interesting one. That'll obviously be the game of the weekend, but when we get there. But yeah, they like you said, just ran train on LSU. LSU looked like they were kind of getting their stuff together, the way that they kind of, just completely roundhouse kicked Florida State the previous, 2 weeks ago, maybe. But yeah, you got to be extremely impressed with Tennessee and what they've been able to do.
Yeah, we'll get into it in the preview episode. It's one of the bigger games of the week, but it'll be interesting to see where they stand after a true test with Alabama coming into town too. So we'll get a nice look and see what all Tennessee does have to offer this year, if they are legit or a nice Cinderella story up to this point in the season.
Hard to say Tennessee's a Cinderella story. That's kind of sad. It's not like they got Sister Jean on the sideline or anything.
True, but they always have such high hopes every year and think that they're back. And this year that it looks like they are to this point. So,
well, one of my coworkers he's a massive Tennessee fan. His whole family grew up in Tennessee and everything. He grew up in Texas, but his whole, parents, aunts and uncles, grandparents, everything grew up in Tennessee. So he's a Vols fan. And he's like, God, I hate our fans so much. It's like, we're either nobody's grounded. It's like either like we're going to the title game or we suck, blow up the whole program, death penalty to the Vols. Like, screw this.
Sounds about right.
So that's not atypical for Southern college football fans, but yeah, no, they look actually legit this year. So he's trying to keep himself level-headed, which he's pretty good at doing.
Nice.
So over the weekend, I was at a Texas versus Oklahoma Red River shootout watch party, and wasn't a whole lot of watching to do because Texas absolutely rolled OU 49-0. I mean, Quinn Ewers back behind center. There's a massive difference with Ewers behind center there than there was with Hudson Card. Ewers 4 touchdowns, Bijan 230 and 2 on the ground. Like Tavion Sanders, their tight end, 2 touchdowns himself. So Xavier Worthy scored again. I mean, this Texas Longhorn offense is for real. Yeah, Oklahoma's been bad this year, but still to get a 49-0 W in that game is insanely impressive. Like I said, I mean, I arrived about 25 minutes after the game started and it was 21-0. I was like, what the hell is this? Like, okay, I'm going to go play like bag toss for the rest of the day, I guess. Right. Like, I don't even need to necessarily, I mean, of course, kept my eye on it. They had it all over the place, but, and thankfully I was with a family, or the couple that was hosting was big UT fans. So that made it very, very enjoyable, but goodness gracious, 49-0 against Oklahoma. Like, how far has OU fallen just in 1 year from losing Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams? Like, you thought, okay, bring in Brett Venables, who'd always been a nice defensive coordinator at Clemson. We've seen a legitimate drop-off with Clemson's defense with Venables gone. Yeah. But, I kind of said this last week, some guys are just meant to be really high-end coordinators. We've seen this, we've seen it with who's that Steelers offensive coordinator? Todd Haley. Yeah. Great offensive coordinator. God awful head coach, at least in the NFL. Yeah. So some guys are just meant to be high-end offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators. Some guys are meant to be head coaches and true CEOs. It's, the president versus a vice president. There's a difference between the two. But so I guess it's hard for me to say what's the bigger, like, what do you take out of this? Is it the bigger letdown and downfall of Oklahoma or an apparent uprising of Texas and kind of seeing what they could end up turning into? I mean, Quinn Ewers is the obvious, like, holy shit, massive difference maker.
Yeah, no. And I don't know which is the bigger story. Cause for me, we'll keep on the Oklahoma side before I start talking a little Texas. And it's like you said, I think Brent Venables obviously was a phenomenal defensive coordinator with Clemson, and it doesn't to this point look like he's cut out to be a head coach at all. Does OU move off of him after this season? I mean, getting embarrassed by Texas, they've lost 3 games in a row right now. They're obviously not going to be competing for the Big 12 title this year.
No, they and the week previous they got smoked by TCU by 31. Yeah. Like, it's not like they're not even competitive. That's the thing, is like, it's not just, they're not just losing, they're getting smashed.
Yep.
So I think it's, I go back to Mark Stoops again. I mean, obviously that Stoops name is legendary as it gets in Oklahoma football history. Why not give Mark Stoops a shot here? Brett Venables, to me, pretty clearly isn't the answer.
Yep. Maybe another target. We'll talk about him during the NFL portion, but maybe bringing Matt Rhule back to the Big 12 to transition over the SEC.
And he was awesome. I mean, he turned around Baylor. He had a really good record at Temple before he went to Baylor, so hardly know her. But is that the 3rd time today? Damn it. Jeez. Slow down.
But moving over to Texas, I mean, it makes you wonder what if Quinn Ewers didn't get hurt during that Alabama game? They probably beat Alabama. Yeah. Are they undefeated at this point in time? Are they a team now? Are they, to me, I think they're one of the favorites to win the Big 12. I mean, we'll talk about another team here, or at least I'll bring them up after this, but they've got to be one of the favorites. I mean, that offense is just absolutely ridiculous. And I don't know that there's another offense that's in the Big 12 that'll be able to compete with them. Yeah, their defense is a little suspect at times, but I mean, they held Alabama to minimal points for an Alabama offense. You look at OU this last week, shutting them out. I think that was the first time since 1998-ish, late 90s, that Oklahoma's been shut out. So that defense is okay. I mean, to me, Texas has to be one of the favorites for the Big 12.
I'm fine saying that. Yes, I think they should be. There are a number of other Big 12 teams that are, AP ranked ahead of them, but we've been shitting on these AP rankings all season long, so I'm putting no stock into that.
Exactly. One of the teams I wanted to transition over to was where game day was at last week. For those of you on YouTube, got my Horned Frogs shirt on, rocking it today. So TCU goes into Lawrence.
Why do you have that?
Off Kansas. I got it a couple of years back when I was down visiting. Not the last time, but the time before, when my parents were down and we went and
you went to Fort Worth.
Went to Fort Worth and walked around campus for a little bit. So
that's cool.
Gotta grab a TCU Horned Frog shirt. So
I like it.
Yep. So, but no, they end up going in. Yeah. Kansas put up a really good fight, especially Jalen Daniels went down early in that game with a shoulder injury. Got word, I think, like an hour ago, he's going to be out for the season. So tough.
That sucks, man. That sucks so much.
Yep,
he had been balling out.
Yep. But
that's heartbreaking.
Yep. They were still able to keep it together, though. We're right in it till the end. But man, Sonny Dykes, what a turnaround he's done with this TCU program. TCU moves off a longtime head coach, Gary Patterson, last year and brings in Sonny Dykes over from SMU and got TCU undefeated right now. Max Dugan's tearing it up at the quarterback position, and TCU looks legit too.
So, I mean, okay. So Austin versus Fort Worth, Texas right now, if they're playing, who do you give the edge to?
Oof. I still think I have to go Texas.
I think so too. I think Quinn Ewers is that guy.
He's a difference maker. Yeah.
I'm sitting here wondering, I mean, if he's playing like this, what do they do next year when Arch comes in? I mean, seriously, you can't. Does Arch Manning, does he have to already think about transferring? I mean, or does he? I mean, or really, Ewers only has one more year till he can go to the league. So I guess
high school
Arch can sit there for 1 year, but like he's been lights out. And like you said, they were right there with Bama until he went down. And that offense looked really powerful. So against an Alabama defense, I like Texas. I think that they should be the Big 12 favorites right now.
Yeah.
which I think I had them as like one of the bigger disappointments of the year at the beginning of my preseason predictions. I said Sark is already on the hot seat. So not a great,
we're wondering and talking shit
like
about them
pick.
losing to Kansas last year. And that doesn't look as
now
bad
Kansas
now.
is oh, not a great Big 12 analysis out of your boy.
No.
I guess, okay, next game out I need to touch on is UCLA. We said last week as well, kind of wonder where Utah, how they're going to be looking at this game, knowing that you've got USC the following week. But UCLA right now is the number one team in the nation in points per game, averaging 42 a game. Chip Kelly, a 6-year quarterback. I mean, Chip Kelly knows how to, obviously we saw what he did to Oregon, that Oregon program that was nothing special before he got there, and really, really turned the reputation of that program around. Now he's just, he's in year 5, I believe, with UCLA, and they're rolling. I mean, up to number 11 in the AP, but I think that they deserve to be even higher. I've got them as, it's tough to say, between them and USC right now as the Pac-12 favorites, but the way this UCLA offense is rolling, I mean, multiple impressive wins, the way that they kind of just took care of Utah this week, and it wasn't all that, it was competitive, but UCLA had control that entire time. It's really nice to see what that program is doing, because there had also been talks about Chip Kelly being on the hot seat again. He's been on the hot seat for a couple of years, and I think
it's just permanently hot.
It's just I think so. It was the second he got to Philly with the Eagles. It was also in San Francisco, and now I think he's hopefully proven his worth to that UCLA fan base, those boosters. And it'll be really interesting to see how that offense translates to the Big Ten in a couple of years, because it is a run-centric offense. It's not like they're, like a Big 12, run and gun, spread offense, and that it's like the offense that he runs will translate well against physical Big Ten defenses. So I don't think UCLA is going anywhere anytime fast, as long as they're able to replace DRT at the end of this season. DTR, but Thompson Robinson looks like he's absolutely in this Heisman candidate race right now, the way that he's been playing and leading this team to an undefeated record.
Yeah, I think he has to be, and he's really embraced Chip Kelly's system. I mean, obviously he's been playing in it for quite some time.
He better by now.
Yeah, this reminds me and is reminiscent of some of those Oregon Duck days with Chip Kelly there. I mean, you never had a huge NFL superstar quarterback that was there, but you had somebody that was mobile, that could get the ball down the field, that had a nice running offense, like you had mentioned, and just a lot of quick athletic guys. And that's what this UCLA team is right now. And they're just beating up on everybody that comes their way. We had talked 2 weeks ago, the Washington game, and we thought, oh, well, we'll see what UCLA is really made out of. And they showed us. And then another solid win this last week. And I guess the only really bone I have to pick with UCLA, Utah comes in, you have 2 ranked teams, and they still can't fill the stadium. Like, what is it going to take? I don't get it.
Well, how far is their campus?
It's a ways, but I mean,
Pasadena?
you have to imagine that there's transportation from school over to Pasadena to the Rose Bowl.
UCLA campus to Pasadena is a 26-mile drive. That's
so
LA traffic.
That's like an hour probably.
It's over an hour right now on Google Maps. That's why.
Well, it is rush hour there right now, but still.
Okay, but still, is it not rush hour on game day?
Yeah. Could be, yeah.
Let's see. How do UCLA students get to the Rose Bowl? They've got buses, but still those buses are if it's an 11 a.m. it's going to be a 9 a.m. kickoff for them for some of these Big Ten games.
Yeah, I would imagine
if they're on big noon kickoff.
Yeah,
that's gonna be like see. Hey, get up at 6, be ready to go, get on the bus. That's gonna be a little rough. Maybe they should get helicopters. I'm sure they could afford it.
Right. The last game I want to bring up here is a team that we just kind of mentioned a little bit, and you'd mentioned USC, UCLA for the Pac-12 title, and I want to throw Oregon into the mix too. They're sitting at a quiet 5-1 right now. They got absolutely shellacked opening weekend against Georgia, which they haven't done anything bad since then. I mean, they're 5-0 since that game. Haven't played great competition coming up. They're off this week, and then they play UCLA at home next week. So we'll get a true test there. It'll be a great game in Eugene. Probably site a game day, I would think, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there. But Oregon, they don't face USC at all this year. I think I'd mentioned that a couple of weeks back, but they got UCLA at home, Utah at home, and then a road last game, the Civil War at Oregon State. So yeah, maybe there's a slip up, but yeah.
And then from there, if they run that table, then the Pac-12 championship game.
Yep.
That's 4 straight.
Nice.
3 straight, and then eventually get to that Pac-12 championship game. That's a tough stretch.
But I give Dan Lanning a ton of credit because a lot of people were questioning his head coaching candidacy after that Georgia game, and he's really turned them around. Bo Nix he's been fine. He's been consistent, which that's been something that he really has struggled with in the past. You'd have awesome.
That's maybe the most shocking thing that we've said on this podcast ever.
Yes.
Consistency from Bo Nix.
Yep. But no, it's going to be a fun race in that Pac-12. And that there's going to end up being some sort of slip up here and there. There's never an easy road game when it comes to traveling in the Pac-12 to some of those environments. But man, I mean, I keep picking against USC in our upset picks, and I'm done doing that because
probably about time.
they're legit. Any other games, Joe, or should we transition over to the NFL here?
Let's get into the pros.
Sounds good. Well, before we kick off some of our recaps from the weekend, we'll just bring up Matt Rhule did get fired yesterday. Again, we're recording on Tuesday, so not really a surprise. I mean, his tenure in Carolina has been awful, to say the least. He hasn't had many quarterbacks to work with. I mean, he's been working with Sam Darnold, Cam Newton for a little bit. Obviously Baker Mayfield this year.
And that's a busted Cam Newton.
Yeah.
That's a broken after
Cam Newton left and came back to Carolina.
Yeah.
So
not good.
Not great, but you have to imagine there's a lot of college teams that are going to probably be looking for a new direction with their program and licking their lips, seeing that Matt Rhule is a free agent now that they can try and lure to their campus.
I'm just I'm pumped for him. He's got $40 million left on that Carolina Panther deal.
Just insane.
And he's going to get all of that. Then if he coaches in college ball next year, he's going to get another 10. So he's going to be making, I believe it's $7 million a year that he's making in Carolina right now for the next 4 seasons. Or no, that doesn't add up. Next 6. What is it? Whatever. Math.
Yeah. He had
I think it's $5 million left in this year. And then he's got 5 more seasons at $7 million after something crazy. Let's say he gets a college, some high-end college job. Again, you mentioned OU. If Venables is gone, back to the Big 12. Why not? He goes and gets 10 there. Guy's making some mad cash. So kind of happy for him in that sense. I mean, that Panthers team was never going anywhere.
Oh.
David Tepper was talking about, hey, we need to build a culture for the Panthers. And it's like, you know what? Before you start thinking about building a culture, maybe get a freaking quarterback. Like that feels like the bigger need than culture building right now. Culture building is great in high school and college, but you need a freaking quarterback in the NFL. I mean, with how thin those margins are, I mean, we saw last night, not to jump up to, into a new segment too quick, but we saw last night that Raiders Chiefs game, again, recording live on a Tuesday. And the difference was Mahomes versus Derek Carr. And it was a 1-point game. Like, that's how razor thin these margins are in the NFL. So no, priority number one, get a quarterback. But yeah, it was a long time coming. I didn't expect him to get through this season. Certainly kind of odd to see a quarterback fired after week 5, but shit. I mean, it might have been in the Panthers' best interest to let him ride it out so they could get that top pick in the draft and have their, pick whichever one of these quarterbacks that they want coming out this upcoming draft.
Yeah. No, it was, this has to be the earliest I think a coach has been fired, at least in a while. I can't remember one earlier in the season. Granted, he's been there for a while, so it's not like he's brand new and they only gave him 5
It's not
games.
like the Urban Meyer situation where we're brand new, right?
Yeah, but still, I mean, they obviously saw it. We've seen that. I mean, I think I was talking about it last week that Carolina, like, it would come on during red zone, and I'm just like, barf. Like, this is just terrible football to watch. So yeah, I mean, it's was not surprising, and yeah, they're going to be riding out now. And I guess the biggest question too is we'll see what happens here in the next couple of weeks before the trade deadline. If Carolina ends up going full rebuild mode, trying to trade away some of the pieces. I think there was a rumor going around Twitter yesterday that the Bills had reached out about CMC, and we'll see about his name will probably be brought up. DJ Moore probably. So we'll kind of see what ends up happening here. So
let's see Robbie Anderson back to the Jets.
We are live on a Tuesday. Haven't talked a ton of baseball, but Jordan Alvarez with a 3-run walk-off.
No, walk-off?
Walk-off. 8-7 Astros final.
Come on.
Dusty's out there clapping with his 2 gloves. Barf. But anyways, now going back to Matt Rhule. Carolina was a sneaky pick for some to take over the NFC South division this year, and that looks just awful.
No, that ain't happening. No, pretty clearly.
No. What game stood out from this weekend, Joe? I know there were quite a few you were getting upset about.
It was just a week of a ton of disappointment from a number of coaches, teams, quarterbacks, and I mean, I don't even want to talk about that Thursday night game, the Colts Broncos. I've got like PTSD from that.
I do. I just wanted to.
You go ahead then, because I just want to get it over with then.
Yeah, no, it's just a quick. Was that the worst game you've ever seen? Because
that game went into overtime too. Yes. They put us through overtime.
Yep.
Unacceptable. Gonna say it again. Nate can't hack it. Weekly, at least. Yes. No, I guess I want to start off with the London game. Giants, Packers. Packers had at one point a 17-0 lead and just barfed it away. They went scoreless in the second half outside of a safety in the final seconds when the Giants punter intentionally ran out of bounds to try to kill some clock. So yeah, I mean, being up 20-3 at one point, 20-10 at half, and to go, again, go scoreless in the second half. It was completely unacceptable. Rodgers had 2 balls batted down to effectively end the game. And, I sit here as a Packers fan. I'm like, yeah, that sucks that he had 2 balls batted down. But then if you looked at where those balls were going, those receivers had no space. It's not like either of those receivers that he was throwing to were open. They would have fallen to the turf either way. So really pathetic game all around. I mean, losing to Daniel Jones. Yes, the Giants are 4-1, which is a miracle, maybe the worst 4-1 team ever, but can't lose to Daniel freaking Jones. But offensively, that's the much bigger disappointment. Aaron was talking about, yeah, hey, we want to air it out this week and, or hope to air it out a little bit more going forward. 39 pass attempts. So I guess they tried for 222 yards. That's just over 5 yards per attempt. So like, are you really airing it out? I mean, no, you're not. When Randall Cobb is your leading receiver, you're not airing it out. So just really disappointing. Christian Watson, 1 reception for 1 yard. Like this was the first receiver taken off the board by Green Bay. Expectation was that he would jump into that number 2 role. Romeo Doubs has appeared to be doing a really nice job of jumping into that number 2 role behind Lazard, but he went for 3 for 29 this past week. I mean, just this offense is unacceptable. And yeah, I think everybody knew that losing Devontae Adams was going to hurt the offense, but they couldn't even get the running game going. AJ Dillon only had 6 carries. I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss with this team. And I just straight up don't think they're that good.
Yeah, and it just seemed like in the second half, too, they just completely abandoned the run. I mean, they're getting some ground gained handing the ball off, but I don't know if it's LaFleur. I don't know if it's Rodgers. I don't know what is going on there, where we've seen this in the past a lot, too, where Aaron Jones is a great running back. AJ Dillon, solid running back, and for whatever reason they don't utilize them and wear it down. I don't know if they're too proud to be the throw it back football team where I
think it's Aaron. I think it's Rodgers, man. You know that he's really the one in control of that offense.
Yeah,
they averaged over 5 yards a carry.
Yeah,
why abandon that when you're up 20-10 at half against the Giants? Just in London, just get the damn game over with.
Yeah.
Run the shit out of the ball and end the game.
It literally makes no sense. And then I always think it's funny too when he says, "Oh, we want to air it out," because 99% of his passes are like 8 yards down the field. So I don't.
Half of them are little freaking. Half of them are little dump offs to like Aaron Jones or Dillon behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I had also put in my notes: are the Giants for real?
Hell no.
No, they are not. Their wins this season are against Tennessee, Carolina, Chicago, and Green Bay. So no, they will be
Tennessee
coming back down
is also a poor 3. What are they? 3-2, I think, right now. They're a bad team with an above 500 record.
Carolina just fired their head coach. The Bears are the Bears. So yeah, no, the Giants are not for real. It's a great start for Brian Dable though, with Daniel Jones. I mean, nobody saw this coming, even with their schedule. They're winning games that they probably should be winning, outside of, I would argue, the Green Bay game. But they shouldn't
win any games. They're bad. But Dable's legit though. Yeah. I'll give it to Dable.
And they're doing it without any wide receivers. No wide receivers. Nobody made the trip to London.
Just pathetic. I'm out. I'm done. Fuck the Packers.
Speaking of teams that keep on winning, Joe, jumping down to your neck of the woods, and Cooper Rush of the Dallas Cowboys just keep finding ways to win games. And I more so want to go off here and ask you, how bad are the Rams? Cowboys have a really good defense, but this Rams team just looks absolutely dysfunctional.
It's Cooper Kupp and ...
Tyler Higbee with dump offs.
That's seriously, there's no run game. Stafford rarely has time in the pocket. This offensive line it's amazing. They had a really, pretty solid offensive line last year. They lose 40-year-old Andrew Whitworth to retirement. And it's like, they just collapse. And I think we all knew that this Rams run was going to be a short window because they've been trading away their top picks for years. And so they have zero depth. They lose one offensive lineman to retirement, a 40-year-old, and they've completely fallen apart. They have no receiving depth. I mean, Allen Robinson is, he's just a big, he looks like Laquan Treadwell out there, just tall and slow.
He's making last year look like a career year, which is terrible because he is non-existent in Chicago.
Like, this is so bad. And thank God that Cooper Kupp can do, they at least still have him, but shit. I mean, we sit and it's not, and wonder if Bobby Trees is really being missed. He's not having a great year in Tennessee, but he sure as shit would be a better number 2 than Allen Robinson is right now, who is non-existent. Tutu Atwell, pointless, at least offensively. Former second round pick. So when you have such few picks that the Rams have, you can't miss. Cam Akers post Achilles,
not great,
nothing.
Bob.
I mean, so they just have no. They drafted that running back out of Notre Dame, Kerryon Williams, and he's barely hit the field. 4th round pick. Like, this is what happens when you go balls to the walls, and they did get a title out of it. So I'm sure they're happy with the moves that they made, trading away all that stuff, all that capital for Stafford, trading away multiple firsts for Jalen Ramsey. Like, but all these moves, eventually they catch up to you. There's consequences for every move that you make, sometimes positive, sometimes negative. And it worked out. But now you lose your top offensive lineman who had been a stalwart there for years. Stafford is hurt. I mean, it seems like he's still clearly dealing with that elbow issue. Allen Robinson, take a shot in the dark at him, been nothing. OBJ was a freaking awesome spark for them last year. He's got an ACL that who knows when he's going to be back on another team on an NFL roster. They have no depth. Von Miller gone too. You'd imagine Aaron Donald, who has already had his foot out the door going into retirement. I mean, he won his ring. He doesn't probably have the same fire, still a dominant force, but not the same reckless, just insanity that we've seen out of him in past years. I look at the Rams and I'm like, shit, are they going to make the playoffs?
Playoffs? No, I don't think they will if they keep playing like this. I mean, granted, the NFC is really pretty weak. It's not great so far, but I just wonder what this Rams team's even going to look like in a year or two. Like you had mentioned, Aaron Donald almost retired this last offseason. There was rumors that we didn't know if McVay was even going to be back. What happens a year from now? Let's say they don't make the playoffs this year. Is Aaron Donald just like, well, I got my ring last year. I'm done. Yeah. Sean McVay's like, well, the TV deal's looking good. Stafford's like, well, these injuries are just kind of piling up. I'm going to get out while I can. Now I got my ring. And then what happens with the Rams? I mean, you're going to be just garbage.
Doomed.
Just garbage. But that's what they did. Like you mentioned, they traded away all of their top draft picks. It worked out. They had a couple of runs in the playoffs and then won a Super Bowl, which, again, as a fan base, if you win a Super Bowl, I think ultimately it's worth it. But you are going to pay a huge, huge price in the years to come with rebuild. It's
we've seen this with, you see this more in baseball, like with, I always like to think of the Kansas City Royals, where they went from being pretty much irrelevant. They had 2 sweet runs where they made the World Series. The following season, they win the World Series. And now they're back to being garbage because they traded away a lot of their top prospects. But they got a World Series out of it. So ultimately, like, for the Royals, I think that, no regrets. I think for the Rams, same thing. But it's just like, it's almost tough to watch this offense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next game I need to dive into. Eagles, Cardinals, and mostly I gotta go in on Kyler here. I don't understand. So final drive of the game, first down, runs, gets 9 yards, slides short. So where you start your slide, that's where
dead.
it's marked. The ball's marked down. So slides, he's short. 2nd and 1. I don't even know if he knew that it wasn't a first down. I bet he assumed it was a first down. Runs up, spikes the ball. And then, they ended up, ended up just being a bust of a final drive. I don't know why. We saw this before. We saw this in last year's playoffs where he was just not willing to run. He was not willing to take a hit. He was throwing balls away in the end zone so that to avoid hits and stuff. And it's like, or near the goal line, throwing balls away. Had a really horrible pick in that Rams playoff game. And, in the, in his inside of his own 5, because he just doesn't want to get hit. And I get it. You're a teeny tiny guy, but at some point, understand the sport that you're playing. You're playing football. You're going to take some hits, and it's not fun. No quarterback wants to take hits, but you have to. I just think you got to show your team that you're willing to take on a little bit of pain to get a clutch first down against an Eagles team that you had been in all, that was a game. It was a winnable game all game long. And Eagles are undefeated. That would have been a massive win for an Arizona team that's been really disappointing to start off this season. For him to just totally bitch out and slide short so that he could try to protect his body instead of diving forward and getting that first down where he had space. He could have dove for that and very easily made it. It's just, this goes back to show me why there had been reservations on the Cardinals side about giving him that massive contract. There have been issues about his dedication. They put that homework clause in his contract for a reason, because the question was, how truly dedicated is Kyler to, this team, to this sport, to the future of our franchise? And I think that they thought, okay, we give him his $45 million a year. I roll. That's exactly. Insane. And okay, now he's gotten his money. Now we can count on him to go all out. And clearly that is not the case. Now he's like, hey, I got my money. Why do I need to go get hurt here? I think that the Cardinals have to have massive buyer's remorse here. Not saying that they wanted to get rid of Kyler, but shit, they caved like so hard into all of his contract demands. And what are they getting out of him for that? Nothing. Losing football. And it's, I don't know. It's like, is it the Cardinals don't have a very rich history outside of, maybe the Kurt Warner years, but it's just, this is the kind of stuff that the Cardinals, where they bent for Kyler. They bent the knee to him and expected more dedication out of him, and he is giving them nothing in return.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating as a fan just because Kyler is so damn dynamic. And to see him actively choose to not be dynamic as a runner is just really frustrating. He'll run around all day behind the line of scrimmage, but he won't run and go dive and take a hit for a first down in a very clutch moment at the end of a game in the fourth quarter in a 3-point game. It's just inexcusable.
Yeah. No, I don't have too much else to add there other than it's more frustrating as a fan to see what has happened with the quarterback market and the money that is given to guys that are so unproven. And it's just because if you find any sort of mediocre quarterback, you have to pay them to keep them around. Otherwise, you're just going to be in quarterback purgatory. And it sucks. I mean, look at the years Jay Cutler was one of the better quarterbacks in my lifetime of the Bears, which is terrible to say because he wasn't that good. But the money that was being given to him for somebody that didn't do anything, I mean, that's just what you have to do with the quarterback position now, which sucks. You wish it could get reset somehow, but it's just going to keep going up and up where I don't know. But going back to your point, if you're making all of this money, you need to be doing everything you possibly can to win a football game. And Kyler is not doing that. And as a Cardinals, if you were a Cardinal fan, I feel sorry for you, but this is how it's going to be. This is who he is. And you're not going to go anywhere as a Cardinals. The organization, Kyler's not taking you there.
I guess I sit here and like question using the phrase buyer's remorse because Kyler is an awesome talent. But the Browns, the Browns offered Baker over a longer term contract and offered him over $30 million a year back in 2021. Certainly no buyer's remorse from them. Like, so that obviously worked out in their favor. Jacoby Brissett is playing just as well as Baker did last year. So, you don't have to be, if you think you've got a legit team and a legit squad, you don't have to be desperate and, rushing, giving some of these quarterbacks that you do have question marks about massive contracts, because it clearly worked out in the Browns with Baker rejecting that $30 million a year offer. I don't know. It's just, Baker's just disappointing.
Yeah. Last game I wanted to talk about, and I know you got one more, Gel, is the game that happened last night, the Monday Night Football game. Raiders get a nice 17-point lead, and granted, it's the Chiefs. The Chiefs are legit. Even without Tyreek Hill, their offense looks almost better than it did with him there. But what is going on with this Raiders team? Is it Josh McDaniels? I mean, they're 1-5 right now. They can't close out games. Their offense just stalls at times. Josh Jacobs is awesome. We were talking about him prior to recording. He's on both of our fantasy teams in different leagues, but he's phenomenal. They turned down his 5-year option at the beginning of the season.
Decision.
It's like, what is this organization doing? I don't get it. They were a team that obviously they made the playoffs last year, snuck into that winner go home game against the Chargers week 18 last year. And 1-5 start in this AFC West division, and they're terrible.
Well, what's really kind of disturbing here, looking at last night's numbers, more than half of Derek Carr's yards went to Davante Adams. He went for 241. Davante went for 124. And then between the two running backs of Josh Jacobs and Brandon Bolden, that's another 70 yards. So he had about 45, just doing quick math here, hovering around 45-ish yards to other receivers in the air. Like that doesn't cut it. Hunter Renfro's a legitimate receiver. We saw what he was able to do last year. Yeah. And when especially once Henry Ruggs was gone, Darren Waller, is he hurt again? Did you say?
Yeah, he got hurt early on and was out for the game last
But even the games that he had been in, he hasn't been doing, all that much. And so, yeah, I don't know. Is this Josh McDaniels' scheme that he's, it's really a one-man show in the receiving game and then a one-man show on the ground with Josh Jacobs. Those are their two best offensive weapons, but I'm fine with still spreading the ball out a little bit more. It kind of reminds me of the Packers offense back when they had Devontae, right, where it's just heavy Devontae, a few balls here and there, and then a lot of running back action. Yeah. And we saw that the Packers offense we talked about it in one of last week's episodes, that no creativity, largely underperforming under LaFleur. And under Nathaniel Hackett, who was the OC last year for Green Bay, Nathaniel Hackett now in Denver, that offense is trash. Like, I just think but you see how dynamic that Kansas City offense is. And it's not just Patrick Mahomes. Obviously he has a ton to do with it, but he was spreading the ball around to a ton of receivers. Travis Kelce, he had those 4 touchdowns, but yardage wise, it's not like he made a massive, dent in receiving yards. So I just think this offense is boring. And again, that's McDaniels. He's the play caller.
I think Tom Brady got a lot of people jobs that they probably normally wouldn't have gotten. I think that's my take. All the coordinators that have left New England and then come back.
Done nothing.
Yeah. So, all right, Joe, running out of time here. What's the last game you're going to talk about?
Yeah, last one just really quick. And I guess, I'll Brandon Staley, I'm done. Yeah. I mean, the Chargers did win that game 30-28, but they went for it on a 4th and 2 at their own 46 for some reason instead of punting the ball against Jacoby Brissett. The Browns drive, they get themselves 20 or so yards, set up for a Cade York 54-yard field goal. He misses wide right, but York did make a game-winning field goal week 1 against Carolina from 58. Yeah. So that was a makeable kick that was only possible because Brandon Staley decided that he wanted to go for it and try to seal the game. But again, doing it in his own territory, setting up Jacoby Brissett where he only needs to get a few yards to get his kicker into field goal range. That's the disturbing part. If he kicks that ball, even if they kick it and it ends up being a touchback and the Browns get it at the 20, that's still another 34 yards that Jacoby Brissett has to go. Where the Browns had made all their damage, they'd done all of their damage in this game on the ground with Chubb and Kareem Hunt, not Jacoby Brissett tearing it up. So, Brandon Staley, start making some correct decisions. We've been saying that since last year. Nothing has changed. I think that he's going to be the downfall to the Chargers, not ever, as long as he's there, not meeting their potential. If you look at that roster, Justin Herbert has to make us, he is due to make a Super Bowl. And with this dumb fucking decision making from Staley, he's losing, he's contributing to them losing games. In his post-game presser too, this was okay. There were 2 cherries on top of this horrible, this dog food Sunday. First one is that first one goes, shout out to Keenan Allen tweeting, WTF are we doing? When they tweeted when they went for it on 4th. And the second shout out, or the second cherry on top of this banana split, was that after the game, Brandon Staley said that he had confidence in his defense, and that's why he went for it. What? If you have confidence in your defense,
you don't punt it and trap them deep in their own territory.
What? This guy makes no sense. I don't think he knows what he's saying. I don't think he knows what he's doing. I think I think that as long as he's there, the Chargers are not going to reach their potential. It's just so disappointing because they should be right there with the Chiefs as, looked at as the top team in the AFC, one of the top teams in the AFC, along with the Bills and the Chiefs.
When we saw Brandon Staley cost them games last year with his decision-making and going for it on 4th down, and you would think he would learn, but apparently he's sticking to his guns. And again, like you said, Cade York wasn't even close, but it was within his distance. You saw him make one earlier in the year. By the way, that was one of the worst kicks I think I've ever seen.
Oh my God.
That just absolute slice. That looked like me out on the golf course.
But Staley, he just got so bailed out. It's
no, and it's, you wonder if they miss the playoffs again this year with the talent that the Chargers have on that roster, he has to be. And if you don't, then the GM needs to get fired because
for not firing him.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. All right. Well, that will wrap up this episode. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Be the first thing that pops up. Make sure you go to our YouTube page, type in Dead Arm Sports into the search bar, subscribe, click the bell. That way you know when our episodes drop. Videos drop the day after we record, and otherwise you can jump on live. You'll get a notification when we go live, so that way you can ask us any questions in the chat. Joe can be found at DasGel. I can be found at DasJPEG on all of our socials. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send a screenshot, get you some swag sent your way. What are some of those platforms, Joe?
You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. Again, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review to your chosen listening platform. Find us on YouTube. Just search Dead Arm Sports. Channel will be right at the top of your search bar.
Love it. All right, that will wrap up this episode. We'll be back with you tomorrow to preview the big slate of college football games. I am pumped to talk about.
It's nice.
And some NFL. We'll throw some NFL in there too, just because we have to. Nah. But got our Drew Locks upset of the week. We do have a tie in that category. We'll get into that tomorrow. And Joe, close her out.
I guess the Panthers owner, Dave Tepper, really shows who rules the Panthers.
Boo.